Something in the Water Does Not Compute is the seventh track on Prince's 1999 album, which was released in 1982. It is the second song on side C if you had the 2 LP version of the record back in the day, or even nowadays, if you're into the vinyl revival movement. So it comes right after Automatic on side C, and kind of like Automatic, Something in the Water Does Not Compute has a similar theme, so the two songs really lend themselves well to each other to be consecutive on the track listing. And here to talk about Something in the Water Does Not Compute from the Mountains and the Sea podcast, I have Josh Norman. Hi, Josh.
Hey, Jason. Sorry, didn't mean to step on you there.
It's okay.
Man, what an awful debut.
It's quite all right. I think you will do just fine being a professional podcaster yourself.
Oh, wow. I don't know. That is overreaching a little bit. I do have a podcast, half of one. Less than half, because Christy does most of the work, so I'm like 30% of the show.
Yes, and so for listeners of my podcast, you will be familiar with Christy Norman, Josh's wife. She has been featured on a few of my episodes, a couple from the Dirty Mind album, and she was just on the DMSR episode from the 1999 album. But this is Josh's first time on the podcast, so I am going to hand it over to Josh to let him provide a little synopsis of his connection to Prince, connection to Prince's music, how he got started with it, and then also a brief plug of his own podcast.
Wow. So how I first started getting into Prince, my first Prince memory is from 1982. That would make me 8. And I remember I was at a neighbor's house and they were playing Delirious. And I heard the end of the song with a little baby cry, laugh, whatever that is at the end of Delirious. And I thought, what in the world is that? And it really got me curious. And then come to find out, my mother had 1999, the cassette in her car. So I started listening to some of that, and that's how I got into his music. It was kind of just my first musical interest in general. And then when I was in middle school, we moved to Northwest Indiana, and another, like a senior in a high school, I don't know, a few miles away from where we lived, I came to know, and he had a car and could drive, so of course he was super cool.
Sure.
He was a massive Prince fan and would drive to Paisley Park. This was right as Paisley Park opened, and would go there for open rehearsals and concerts, and would come back with stuff and would share it with me. And it was my first exposure to the fact that, what you hear on an album by any artist is a finished product of a lot of creativity and tinkering and practice and revisions and editing, and that never really crossed my mind before. So that really got me interested in Prince. And of course he had a volume of stuff that spoke to me more than anyone else, both like quantity and quality wise. And I would hear things that this guy would bring back to me on albums like 2-3 years after he would bring them back. So it was also sort of my first exposure to Prince bootlegs, if you could call it that, if it was picked up legitimately and shared. So it just became like an obsession of mine through high school and college and adulthood. And a couple Christmases ago, my wife asked me for her big Christmas gift to do a podcast with her. And it never even crossed my mind to do a podcast. And honestly, I hadn't really listened to a lot of podcasts either. It wasn't anything that I was really into. I just wanted to listen to music, right? I didn't want to listen to people talk about music. Who does that? So in April of 2018 is when we launched our podcast, The Mountains and the Sea. And we've been releasing an episode every other week ever since then, without missing a beat. And just to plug the podcast a little bit, it is called The Mountains and the Sea, and that's obviously the chorus from Mountains, which is my favorite Prince single. And we use that as a basis to pick a mountain or a high point, and a sea, a low point from each album or era that we're covering for each episode. And we also pick a time capsule, the thing that speaks to that time period the most to us. You can learn more about us by finding us on Twitter at TMATS Podcast. That's TMATS Podcast. And you can find us on any podcast platform just by looking for The Mountains and the Sea.
Okay. Thanks, Josh. I appreciate you being on the episode and volunteering to take a little bit of your time away from what you're doing to join me on mine, because I really enjoy having guests on my podcast. I do some solo episodes myself, and that works out just fine sometimes, but I really do enjoy bouncing ideas off of other people especially when we're talking about interpreting lyrics or just kind of gleaning some additional information from the words that Prince has written and sung. So that is really the focus of my podcast, and your input will be invaluable for this one, because Something in the Water Does Not Compute is one of those songs. I feel like it's a bit overlooked by many casual fans of Prince, I would say. Mm-hmm. Those who are familiar with the hits, and especially off of this album, where you've got basically 3 consecutive songs that were just enormous hits for the man, with 1999, Little Red Corvette, and Delirious.
Yeah.
This song is on the back half of the album. It's right after a 9.5 minute long song, yeah. Automatic.
Yep.
Somebody listening to it might just feel a bit exhausted after listening to that song, and just really kind of welcome a shorter song, which Something in the Water is. It's just over 4 minutes, which makes it one of the shorter songs on this record.
Yeah, second shortest. That was one of my notes, and I hadn't realized that until I started studying it, that it's just a couple seconds longer than Delirious, which is the shortest song on the album.
Yeah, right. And when you're saying a song that's still over 4 minutes is one of the shortest on the album, that just goes to show you the length of songs that were included on this record to stretch it out to a double album, because there really is only 11 songs on it, which, if you're just looking at it like 11 songs, how is that a double album? Well, you got the song length, so there you go.
Yeah, that's how you do it.
So yeah, Something in the Water. I mean, for me, I didn't personally. It wasn't a song that grabbed me right away. It wasn't a song like the first time I heard it, I said that's something special. It didn't. It took me a while. It took me years, many listens and many years before I finally kind of understood what made this song unique, and its moodiness for me, and like a lot of the lyrics for sure. I mean, that's what we're going to get to, but the music itself is very sparse, and it's got a very kind of futuristic sound to it, which a lot of this album really kind of delved into using technology to create sounds that people hadn't heard before. So for you, Josh, Something in the Water Does Not Compute. What was kind of your introduction to the song, or what were your thoughts on it early on versus maybe if they've changed over time?
I don't think they've changed over time, and to be honest with you, I've been avoiding this album since the expanded edition was announced, because I was like, man, I've listened to this my entire life. I do not want to be burned out on it when I get a fresh take with the remasters and the additional material that's coming. So revisiting this song, kind of in its singularity, reminded me of how I was the opposite of you. I guess I'm maybe a sucker for a Prince Lindrum, no matter if it's from 1982 or 2008. The beginning of the song was one of the ones that stood out the most to me on the album. Just the frantic hi-hat that, goes from the left to the right channel. Maybe not so much like the emotion that you're talking about, because when I got this album, I was a much younger than the mid-40 guy that I am now. Because this gets pretty deep into feelings and a little bit of, I'm saying the obvious things, but I'm making it seem like it's a surprise to me, sort of, the approach to the way Prince wrote the song. That might have been lost on me when I first heard it, but just the drums themselves it stuck out to me, and it was one of my favorite songs off of the album. I also, as I was listening to it, was thinking to myself, how many songs in Prince's catalog have a parenthetical title like this? There aren't many, and I struggled to think of any, like, on my own. And just this morning, Christy sat down and she did a little research, and she's like, oh, no, there's like 4 of them. And I said, okay, well, 4 out of how many release songs right. are there? That's a pretty low percentage,
It's like, it wasn't 0.001%.
Yeah, exactly. It wasn't like parenthesis, I only want to see you laughing in the close parenthesis Purple Rain.
Right.
He didn't do that a lot. So that kind of stuck out to me as just the title alone was interesting.
So what did Christy give you any names of some of the songs that she could think of or looked up?
Oh, she gave me each and every one. If you'd like a rundown.
Well, how about some of the more commonly known ones that we're just kind of forgetting about?
I think she found 4 actually, so we can go through them all. I think the most commonly known is probably the B-side, Gotta Stop, parentheses,
messing about,
which I had forgotten about. There'll Never Be, in parentheses, Another Like Me from MPL Sound. Rock and Roll is Alive, parenthesis, and it lives in Minneapolis. Yeah. And the last one she found was parenthesis, I like, close parenthesis, funky music from New Power Soul.
That's not a lot.
It's not a lot, but it's more than I could think of on my own, which was absolutely none. I just couldn't picture it in my head. Obviously like remixes and that kind of stuff. When like it's house mixes in parentheses, I wasn't counting those. I was trying to think of titles that of official releases that had parentheses, and I could not for the life of me think of one. And now I feel a little stupid.
Well, two of them are B-sides, in all fairness.
True.
Two of them are B-sides.
That's true.
One of them is from a album that was credited to the New Power generation.
Yes, but we all know the story there, right?
Exactly. So, and then one from his later career. So I think probably Something in the Water, in parentheses, does not compute, is probably his most well-known.
I would say you're right, yeah.
Just because of the nature of where it lies in his career and in his discography. It's off of one of his most popular albums. So there you go.
Yeah, totally.
And going back to the comment you made about the memorable and distinctive drum machine programming that he did on this song, for me, I would agree. And I think this song, along with The Ballad of Dorothy Parker, are probably two of his most memorable and creative drum machine programs that I can think of. I mean, like if somebody says, was he good at producing drum machine sounds that are more than just a steady rhythm, doing something creative with it? Absolutely. And these two songs, Something in the Water and Ballad of Dorothy Parker, are two very, very good examples of what he could do with just this instrument at his disposal. And then, just this is just one instrument. This is just a drum machine, and how creative he can make sounds coming out of a drum machine. No different than a producer of hip hop in the 80s and early 90s that was really reliant on drum machine sounds to create the backbeat for the rappers, for the lyricists.
Yeah.
It's a very similar kind of style, very sparse and very distinctive, and it's super creative, and I love it, just like you do.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like it's going to be this up-tempo song at the beginning, and of course quickly it kind of the keyboards come in, and it kind of takes on this more melancholy, like robotic approach. I was trying to decide how would you categorize this. It's not a ballad, but it's certainly not an upbeat song. It lies somewhere between the two.
Yeah, the lyrics don't really lend it to be a ballad, because it's not. It's a very, in some ways, self-loathing song, even though when we get to the lyrics, he has attributes that he likes, that he thinks are good qualities of himself that he wants to highlight, but he just doesn't understand why that is. Some of these things aren't enough for this woman, this person that he's singing about in this song. And the way he sings the song too, he's singing it in a very, I don't want to say odd, but it's a very different way. It almost sounds a little like he's a little unsure of himself as he's singing these lyrics.
Vulnerable for sure.
Vulnerable, like he doesn't really only a few times in the song does he really explode with his vocals. With the screams and some of the more powerful vocal ranges that he is able to do. In this song, he kind of sings it really kind of close to the chest and a little bit whispery at times. Mm-hmm. And it kind of, for me, that kind of comes across a bit vulnerable and unsure of himself. And he just sad, maybe in some ways.
Yeah, definitely melancholy. Yeah.
Melancholy, yes. There's multiple ways that one could describe his singing style in this song, but it's not a style that we've really heard a lot of on this album, at least.
Right. The way you were describing how Prince sings about himself, it's almost like he steps back he's looking at himself from afar and telling the story. It almost seems to me like, I don't know if you've watched Planet Earth, the documentary series. It's like Prince is David Attenborough, and he's describing, all these qualities that should make him very attractive to mates, but yet they all fail. And I could just hear David Attenborough in his British voice talking about the, perfectly sculpted prince, and yet he still, struggles in the lifelong attempt to find a mate.
Yeah, nice. Nice visual. Thank you.
You also, yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. You also mentioned sparse, how the song is so sparse. I know we need to get to lyrics here, but the other thing that struck me revisiting the song and listening to it over and over and over again was, I think that this was really the first album track where he dropped out bass and guitar altogether. Like when Dove's Cry gets credit for that, oh, no bass line, it's so amazing. And of course, that's because it was a single and a number one hit. But this song, recorded years earlier, is very much in the same vein. There's, a drum machine and some pads and some synths and Prince singing and speaking and screaming, and that's really it. So it's kind of one of the first stripped down Prince songs in the catalog to me.
Yeah, it is very stripped down. It's very stripped down, and the theme of the song lends itself to it being stripped down. I mean, it could have been sung
right.
with in a different style, with big guitars and big chorus, but I really think it works better in the way it was created initially, and with this style, because it's kind of we use this word multiple times, a melancholy song, and so a melancholy song needs needs melancholy music behind it, and this really does lend itself.
Yeah, for sure. I agree.
So going back to talking about the lyrics now, as we mentioned, he's kind of speaking about himself a little bit in the beginning of each of the verses. So this first line of the song is a very memorable line right off the bat. Some people tell me I got great legs. Can't figure out why you make me beg. So right off the bat, he is kind of doing what we kind of alluded to, where he's describing himself, with this positive physical attribute, like I've got great legs, but that doesn't seem to be of interest, or it doesn't matter. It doesn't seem to matter to you. You still make me beg, beg for, affection, or beg for forgiveness, or whatever it is that he's having to beg for.
Yeah.
This is that being reduced to begging in order to get the attention or affection from this woman, even though he's got great legs. So
that's right. Yeah. And he also phrases it in a way like it's a surprise to him. Some people tell me I got great legs, when he's thinking, yeah, I'm kind of hot. It's not a surprise to him.
Right. No, I had no idea. Some people told me that, though.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've never noticed.
Right after those first two lines, then you get this kind of repeating, and it goes through, like, this is a pattern throughout the song. Does not compute. Don't not compute. And that's always been a little an odd phrasing to me as well for all the years I've heard it, because I always heard it, don't not compute, but having two negatives like that in a sentence really just is an odd way to say it, I guess. And I don't know why. I mean, I'm not going to try to decipher the meaning behind phrasing that way, besides just not wanting to have to repeat does not compute twice. I don't know. Do you have any additional thoughts on how or why we have a very different way of saying does not compute the second time when he repeats it?
I don't know if it's, it's a kind of robotic song, kind of emotionless sounding, other than the melancholy pads. It's sort of very digital sounding. So we get this human way of saying does not compute. And then I know I've read the lyric sheet and it says don't not compute, but what I've always heard was do not compute, like do not compute. He's like almost, just kind of pushing the words together. But why he chose for it to be different, like you said, maybe it's just to avoid the repetition of, saying the same thing. But does not compute is, really the name, well, it's the parenthetical name of the song. So obviously those were important words. Yeah.
And then who knows? I mean, saying don't not compute also doesn't compute. So,
true. Yeah, that doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense, so it doesn't compute either. So who knows? It might be just be something along those lines as well, where he's just saying something a little nonsensical to just drive home the point that this doesn't compute. Like this, it makes no sense, and neither does this phrasing. So
you're right. Yeah.
So there you go. It's a very robotic phrasing, robotic singing style in this song, especially those lines, that it can be interpreted as just somebody who's kind of, losing control a little bit of their humanity, and the whole sound of the song lends itself to it being a very robotic delivery of lines. And this is when you talk about computers and computing, it makes sense to have it be sung in a robotic way.
Yeah, and this is very, in a line of a couple songs, or like 13 and a half minutes of music on this album is about automation and computers between automatic and now something does not compute. We have this kind of technology statement being made in the middle of this long double album, and that's all part of this song too.
And then after those lines, he says, "You think you're special? Well, so do I. Why do special women make me cry?" Then repeats that does not compute. Don't not compute. You think you're special. Well, so do I.
Yes.
So she seems to be very, I don't want to say full of herself, but she obviously thinks that she's got it going on, and he does as well. I mean, he admits it. So why else would he be with her? And this is a theme, a very common theme in early Prince music, is this woman who he just can't seem to shake or stand up to. He feels a little bit powerless to kind of combat some of these women's negative traits, like whether it's because they're abusive or they sleep around on him or they're conceited, whatever it is, negative traits these women have, Prince feels a bit powerless to combat them or to stand up for himself in some ways.
Yeah, I think we all know that Prince was often all about control. So in a relationship, when he didn't have that, I think it made for great songwriting for him, or, the amplification of whatever personal situation might have led him to write this song. I think that was something that he could really harness, was the amount of uncomfortableness he felt without being in complete control of every aspect of his life. And certainly relationships is one of them, because no matter who you are, you've really got only 50%, right?
Yep. And he's already admitting that this person, this special person, this special woman, makes him cry. So there's been some good times and there's been some bad times. And in this song, one has to assume that the bad times are starting to overtake the good times, and it's just not working out for him. But he's once again a little bit powerless to leave her or to do anything about it.
Right.
So then it goes to the chorus. Must be something in the water they drink. It's been the same with every girl I've had. Must be something in the water they drink, because why else would a woman want to treat a man so bad?
Yeah.
And the way he sings that, it's why else would a woman want to treat a man so bad? So he stretches, that's a long line. It doesn't fit in the same structure as the first three lines in the chorus. So he has to stretch it out to almost be like two lines, but it's really just one sentence.
Yeah, kind of sung or said in double time.
Yeah, exactly. He's got to speed it up a bit to make it fit. So there's the name of the song in the chorus, Something in the Water. Same with every girl he's had. So as we've talked about, this is a recurring theme in Prince's music. He's identifying it himself as a recurring theme in his music as well, or at least like in the life of his character that he's writes songs about. It's a recurring theme for him, and he understands that it's the same with every girl he's had. Something in the water that they drink that makes him want to treat him so bad, basically. Yeah. All the way back to Why You Want to Treat Me So Bad off of the Prince album.
Yeah, there you go.
A number of examples from 78 to 82 when these songs were written, his first 5 years of his career, where you can cite song after song after song where he's got a girl that's no good for him.
Yeah.
So what is it? It must be something in the water, because it can't be me, right?
I was just going to say, where this phrase, it must be something in the water, is like when you reach the point of there is no explanation, so it's got to be that, because I've explored every other possible option, but the one thing he doesn't explore in his music up to this point is the other common denominator in all of these relationships, which is Prince.
No, he hasn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, no self-reflection at this point.
No.
We get that later, but
yeah.
Not in 1982. Not 1982. It's something in the water.
That's right. But I don't know. This is kind of the vulnerable side of Prince. He's not just this, perfect musician, dancer, performer, writer. There's heartache and sadness in his life that he can, connect with people through. Yeah,
he was very, what I would almost call emo a bit before emo. He mined different lyrical content for his hits, and almost they became hits in spite of some of the lyrical themes that he was exploring at the time. This wasn't a hit. I mean, this wasn't a real single by any stretch, but it follows the kind of like the same thought process where 1999 was about nuclear apocalypse, more or less.
Right.
Little Red Corvette was singing a song about a promiscuous woman. When Doves Cry talks about family dynamics and some abusive nature of and dysfunction in the family. And then Let's Go Crazy was just completely bonkers in terms of how it was talking about something very spiritual, but 90% of the people totally never even got any of that message when they first heard it. They thought it was a good party song. So he's really going different places than a lot of pop artists were at this time.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so then we get to the second verse, and he says right off the bat, another self-praising comment. Some people think I'm kind of cute, but that don't compute when it comes to YOU. And repeating the don't compute does not compute.
Mm-hmm.
So some people think I'm kind of cute. So that's another one where he certainly starts off with a statement that he doesn't understand why, even though he's got great legs, and that I guess people think he's cute.
Some people do, yeah.
Why doesn't it compute with you that these physical characteristics that other people find attractive isn't enough? And I know these are all just very surface comments about himself, his legs and being cute. Doesn't speak to anything deeper than just physical appearances, but that's what he's expressing in these lines, is that his physical traits seem to be on point. Why isn't it computing to a woman that wants to treat me good, or somebody who's going to stay with me for other reasons besides physical characteristics?
Yeah. This is another theme that's, has been throughout his entire catalog, is, starting with physical appearance, legs, and being cute, but then, of course, later realizing, it's more about in the mind, being smart. And so he's almost taking us through that path here, too. We've got a specific physical attribute in his legs, and then overall being cute, and then later we get to more heady type things that seem to work for him as he perceives and gets to know women. Obviously, he was attracted to beautiful women, but they were generally, had to challenge him somehow intellectually. Mm-hmm. And he's providing that here, at least through these first two verses, at least from the physical standpoint. And so far, he's 0 for 2, legs and cuteness.
Yeah, it's not enough.
No.
These women are looking for something else, I guess. What's the hang up? What's the scam? Guess you think I'm just another one of your fans. What's the hang up? What's the scam? So he's asking questions now, trying to dig into the psyche of this woman a bit. What's going on? Essentially he's just saying, what's the deal? What's the scam? I mean, that's kind of an odd question, unless it's literally talking about a scam. But if he's not really referring to a scam, if he's just really referring to what's the deal with you? Why is this so difficult for you?
What is the problem?
What is the problem? Yeah, I mean, those two questions are basically asking what's the problem here.
Yeah.
And saying, I guess you think I'm just another one of your fans. So apparently this woman has a lot of quote-unquote fans, a lot of male admirers, people that are really trying to vie for her affection and her attention as well. He doesn't want to put himself like in that category of just another guy who, is trying to hit on her or has eyes for her because of her physical beauty or whatever it is that, she has, that all these people, well, we assume men that he's calling her fans. Is she famous? Is she another singer? Is she a movie star? We don't know. It's just somebody that I think he feels like he's competing against a lot of people for her attention, and it's frustrating to him.
Yeah, and the way he delivers that line, this is one of the first lines where you kind of start to feel like his frustration is coming out. He's a little hard to understand when he says, guess you think I'm just another one of your fans. That repetition of the word one, and there's a reverb on his voice that always makes me have to come back and look up what exactly it is that he says. There's this line and then one a little further on that I think is almost purposefully hard to discern the way he delivers it, because you're starting to get the feeling like we're getting deep insight into the mind of a guy who has been, I don't know, he's starting to go a little crazy maybe because of this situation.
Yeah, and that's a good transition, because after this second verse, he goes to the chorus again. Must be something in the water they drink. It's the same with every girl I've had. Must be in the water they drink, because why else would a woman want to treat a man so bad? And then we get a little bit of a musical break, and then he goes into the third verse, and the third verse is a bit different.
Yeah.
He doesn't sing it in the same way as the first two verses, and that is something I've noticed as I go through these songs from the 1999 era on this podcast. I'm noticing a lot of times the first couple of verses are sung in a very standard way, like he establishes a pattern and then just completely wipes that pattern off the wall with the third verse often. And this is where as you mentioned, kind of like he's starting to go a little bit off the rails now, and his psyche, his delivery of the lyrics, and even the words are starting to become more frantic, a little more desperate. He says, "I've got to get to you, baby. Some people think I'm kind of smart.
Here we go.
Fellow stop with you before he starts." So now he's getting past the physical with some people think I'm kind of smart. Why must the fellow stop with you before he starts? And he sings that song, or that line. Also for me, that's a line that's a little different, because he kind of almost like sings it with a bit of a, I don't want to say hiccup, but it's kind of like a hiccup, like where he goes up and down in his register as he sings that line. And so it's very unique, very different the way he sings that. But he's now trying to show her he's got a different side. There's more depth to him than just physical traits. So people think I'm kind of smart. So if legs and being cute isn't enough, check out my brain. I'm a smart guy. And here, let me tell you, some people think I'm smart too. So what do you think?
Yeah, that line, "Why must a fella stop with you before he starts," is the second one I was alluding to earlier. That's because of the reverb, the echo, and how quickly he, kind of stumbles through it. It's a little hard to even make out exactly what he says outside of the fact that he's continues to be frustrated, right? Yeah,
I didn't know that was the line you were talking about, because for me that line is always difficult to hear as well, so it's not just you.
Oh, good. I mean, I had to look it up this morning. I'm like, I think I know what he says, but I need to make sure I'm, hearing it right. And the way you describe this as the third verse, but a completely different pattern for delivering verses. Like, I looked at this song and tried to find, well, where's the bridge? Is there a bridge in the song? And I sort of thought, well, this third verse is sort of like a mixture of a verse and a bridge. Because it kind of follows the pattern, but is sung in a different way. So it's kind of bridgy.
It is kind of bridgy. And really, as far as like whether or not they're choruses or verses or bridges, I don't know. I mean, all I know is that these are lyrics that don't follow the same pattern as the first two groupings of lyrics. And so this is the point in the song where things start to change, just like and all the other songs where things start to change a little bit. And I guess by definition that would fit more of a bridge pattern for sure.
Yeah.
There's more lines here. He puts in a little "I've got to get to you, baby" before he starts on the lyrics, which he hadn't been really doing any, I don't know, ad-libbing or any adding additional words that don't fit the patterns.
Mm-hmm.
So then after he goes that, he still says it don't compute, but he says he adds some different words here. Don't compute, mama, does not compute.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Something don't compute, don't not compute. So he even takes the standard robotic does not compute, don't not compute, and even puts some more words into that make it seem more human. Because computers don't say mama,
No, they don't.
Typically, if you're asking it to, at least in the computers of science fiction from the 70s and 80s, where they talk like this and they only speak in proper sentences and proper English, they're not going to say something like mama or have lines like something don't compute.
Right, they're going to say Dave, please stop, Dave. Yeah.
This does not compute. So yeah, there's more humanity now in this, and it's not it's more human, but it's also as I mentioned before, to me it sounds more desperate, like he's just reaching and really struggling to understand, and so he's trying to get through to her in whatever way he can, and in this song, and especially now later on in the song, it's starting to get more he's addressing her in ways that he hadn't been addressing her before, because he's trying to really just get her attention somehow, just trying to get through to her.
Yeah, like he's going through his box of tricks, and he's like, something in here's got to work. It's got to work, and he's pulling things out quicker and quicker until he can find the one thing that will turn this all around.
Mm-hmm. And then it really comes to a head with this next line, because this next line where he says, "I'd buy you clothing, buy you fancy cars,"
mm-hmm.
He screams, "I'd." So
yes, he does.
Just the word "I'd" is screamed and lengthened in a way that you normally wouldn't with a 2-letter word, and at this point you really get the sense that he's a bit lost and a bit troubled by this, to the point where he's having to scream at her to get her attention now.
Yeah,
scream at her to get her to pay attention to him and what he's saying. And that's kind of what I'm getting from this now. It's like, "I'd buy you clothing, fancy cars, but you got to talk to me, baby. Tell me who you really are."
Yeah, that's where it kind of turns into an unexpected way to me. Is like seems like he's been wanting affection, he's been wanting attention, but what he's really digging at is, here he's asking just for the doors to be open so he can see and share in who this person really is. And so now I get the picture that he's just been blocked out emotionally, and that's what's got him the most frustrated, that he's not been allowed, to be intimate with her on an intellectual or emotional point of view.
And up until this point, until you get to this section of the song, you don't really know what's going on, if this is a real relationship that he's in, that he's feeling like he's being abused. But at this point, he's yelling at her that he's going to give her all these things, but he's getting nothing in return. Like, she's not talking to him. She's not allowing him a chance to get to know her, like you said. And then you go back, after reading that, and you go back to the first couple of verses, you look at it again, and you understand that he's really, like you said, been blocked out. So he's telling her about these physical attributes he has. Can't figure out why you make me beg to pay attention to him. And then think just another one of your fans. Once again, she doesn't probably barely even know who he is, Right. She may even think that he is just kind of a pest at this point.
Right, yeah, he's a fly. He's a fly in her soup.
either she's not interested or she's playing very, very hard to get.
Yes, right.
Like extremely hard, like the hardest ever.
The hardest ever.
The hardest to get ever.
Yeah,
All
I mean,
right,
like you said, the first two lines of the song makes it, what do men beg about if they think they're hot and have great legs? It's probably something sexual, but you get further into the song, and it's like a lot of 1999 as an album, it's much deeper than it would lead you to believe on the surface.
Yeah. So at this point, I think we're kind of getting a picture. A picture's been painted for us that. And what I see when I listen to the song after going through the lyrics and, when you've got the music behind it to kind of help tell the story, is I envisioned like this woman being somebody that Prince knows, that's in his periphery somehow. And we all know this is a song, right? So we don't know that there's any example of this being a song that he wrote about somebody. But what I get, and I try to do some of this with these songs, I get visualizations of what's going on to kind of help me picture what it is he's singing about, and I just envision somebody who is very popular with the opposite sex because probably for a number of reasons, and there's a lot of like she's kind of an important person, whether or not she's important in her professional life or personal life, both. And he's somebody who is just infatuated a bit, enamored with her, and he really wants to get her attention. He feels like he's better than all these other people, all these other men that are trying to get her attention because of his physical traits and his brain. And he's got money, so he's going to buy her clothing and fancy cars. So he must have money, right? So and none of it seems to be enough to get her attention, and it's frustrating as hell for him. Bitch, you think you're special?
Yeah, here we go. He's calling back to one of the earlier lines, which was complimentary early on. You think you're special? Well, so do I. And here it's an insult.
Yeah, right. It's meant to sound insulting, like you think you're all that. You think you're the shit or whatever. But
right.
So now he just by adding that word "bitch" in front of it.
Yes.
Takes completely different tone to the line. You think you're special? Well, so do I. And he still says so do I after this. Mm-hmm. So it's not like he doesn't still think she's special. He's just now pissed off that even though she is special and she knows she's special and he knows she's special, it's killing him in ways. It's like he wishes that she wasn't. He wishes that she was just another girl that he could get with because of whatever stature he has, but
or he could just walk away and forget about it, but he's not able to.
Right, because he pauses after saying that.
Yeah, he does. Even the way he says the word bitch, it's kind of almost whispered in a way. He kind of slips it in before he says you think you're special, like he's insulting her behind her back almost.
Yeah. Underneath his breath because he doesn't want her to hear it.
Exactly. Like he that's how he really feels, but he doesn't want her to know that because he's too busy worrying about getting to know her more intimately. Yeah.
And then after he pauses and after saying that line, then he pauses to say, "So do I." "So do I" comes across to me almost like as a sung in resignation. Like
like I choice. Do. Yeah. I can't. I'd love to not think that, but I do.
Yep. And so here in this section of the song, there's, like I said, there's a bunch of spoken word lines that many of them are whispered, and it's really hard to make out some of them. And I think whether or not he's ad-libbing or these were all pre-written, I don't know, but I'll just read a few of them because they're kind of interesting. So he says like, "Why in God's name do you want to make me cry?" So kind of hearkening back to the "Why do special women make me cry" line.
Yeah.
And he's begging again, why? And he says that a couple times in this section. "I'd do anything for you, anything. Why don't you talk to me? Tell me who you are. Don't do this to me. Please don't do this. Why? And then as the song kind of fades out, and you just all you're left with is his vocals and the synth line.
Yeah.
That just starts, and the synth line is also kind of mirroring his vocals. Like it's kind of comes and goes. It's there, and then it's silence, and then it's there, and then it's silence.
Mm-hmm.
I do love you. I do. Or else I wouldn't go through all the things I do. And that's how the song ends.
Yeah, and his voice is almost shaking when he delivers that last line, or else I wouldn't go through all the things I do. Like you can almost hear him in the crying that he's, referenced before.
Yeah, he sings this song with a lot of emotion, even though early on in the song there's some lines that are sung with more of a robotic tone, but by the time we get to the second half of this song, there's a hell of a lot of emotion there, starting kind of off with that third verse bridgy section with the screaming, I buy you clothing, fancy cars. From then on, the song is filled with emotion, and the lines are sung with emotion, even though a lot of them are sung very quietly and near whispering, because I really feel like he's just, I just envision him just kind of singing the song alone in his bedroom, just so angry and frustrated, and he's not singing them to her anymore. He's just talking to himself. He's just
it's like a diary entry, and like you said, it starts off very like I'm going to tell you this, but I don't really want to talk about it. So it's just like kind of facts until it gets, he starts to open up more, and then the real heartache kind of gets exposed towards the latter half of the song and really reaches a peak at the very end.
Yeah, by the time you're done with the song, and it's only just over 4 minutes, he's emotionally drained.
Yeah.
As singing it and performing the song, it's an emotionally draining song to listen to. Mm-hmm. And it's an emotionally draining song, I'm sure, for him to sing because of the nature of the lyrics and how he has to kind of deliver them to sell it, for sure. Mm-hmm. There needs to be that up and down, like it's a very much of a roller coaster with the screaming and yelling and frustration to the sad sack kind of vocals that he puts at the end, where he's just basically resigned to living this life of being shut out from this woman's life, even though he can't help himself but basically love her from afar in some ways, even though he doesn't know her, and he gets so angry that he doesn't give a chance to know her. He doesn't get a chance to do that.
Yeah, it's like the gears or the control knobs of a relationship just are doing nothing for him. He's done everything right, and like the doors to her heart and mind are just not opening, even though he thinks he has every key that there is.
Yep. He thinks he's got the keys, and the keys don't fit the lock in this case, for sure.
That's right. He doesn't have the skeleton key either.
No. No, he's got the keys, but they're to the wrong house.
That's right. But you don't hear...
There's plenty of women that would love to be with him at this point, and...
Oh, yeah.
Not this one, though. Not this one.
Not this particular one. But there's not a lot of times that you hear Prince almost admit defeat in a song, and this one he sort of does. That's almost his way of saying goodbye. It's like that last line, I do love you, or else I wouldn't go through all the things I do. It's not a last effort to get her to open up to him the way that he does. It's almost just like his final statement to her, saying, well, despite all this, I still love you, and I continue to do these things, although now, I'm making the definition of crazy for myself because I keep doing the same things over and over again and expecting a different result when that's not the way it's going to work.
All right, so that brings us to the end of the song, and for me, Something in the Water is, like I had mentioned earlier, it's a song that I didn't gravitate towards early on when I was listening to this record. He kind of got lost in the shuffle for me. And it took some maturity on my part. It took some time with the record and this song in particular to really get its appeal. And you would think that, me being also in my mid 40s, that, my emo days are over and and they're behind me. If I was going to really relate to this song, it would have been, decades ago when I was maybe, still dating and having a similar experience where there was somebody that I really liked, and that person wouldn't give me the time of day, and this song could have really resonated with me then. But it doesn't matter that, I'm married, and I've been happily married for many, many years, that a song can still bring back feelings or thoughts that existed in you decades prior. And it doesn't matter that you're no longer in that place. You can still feel the emotion. You can still relate. And this song does that for me, and it does it in so many ways, because of the music, because of how it was recorded, the song was delivered, the lyrics, just everything about this song, to me, makes it one of the highlights of the record.
I totally agree. I'm glad you feel that way. It just is like, this is kind of why music exists. Like, you can come back to the song that was recorded 35 years ago, and it can bring out emotions in you that were going on in someone else, halfway across the world, and reach a part of you that nothing else can. You can't get that so much in a movie, because you're seeing characters, there's visuals there, where here it's just instruments and vocals, and the emotion is just much more laid out there for you, so it's much easier to connect with, I think, in that way.
So any other final thoughts, Josh, on the song?
I would just encourage, any naysayers out there for this particular track. Like you said, it does get overlooked a little bit, and maybe it's just because of its position, second song on the second half of a very long album following a very long song, actually 2 songs in a row that are very long.
Right.
Isolating it the way that I did the last week or so, preparing to talk to you today, and just listening to this one song on repeat, almost out of context of the album, makes it even more powerful. So I'd give it a revisit in that way if you can.
Agreed. Absolutely. This song deserves more attention. Press Rewind, Prince Lyrics Podcast. I've been your host, Jason Brenninger. Listen to Josh and Christy's podcast, The Mountains and the Sea. It's great. They do a lot of great topics. Unlike mine, where I go chronologically, they bounce around. So, if you're not really into the era that they're covering with a certain section of episodes, just wait a little bit. They'll get to something that you're really down with. And if you're just into Prince, they have a lot of Prince knowledge between the two of them. And so I really enjoy you guys' podcast.
Thanks, Jason. We love listening to you too, and I'm glad I could finally get on. I know Christy's enjoyed her few visits with you in the past too, so look forward to doing it again sometime.
Okay. Thank you very much, Josh. And until next time, bye, everyone.